Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that, well, it touches so many of us, often tangled up in feelings of shame, struggle, failure, really.
Mhm.
We're talking about the weight loss journey.
That's right. But we're looking at it through, I think, a really powerful, maybe unexpected lens.
Yeah, we've been spending time with some insights drawn from two different sources, reflecting on the teachings of someone named Dan Hollis.
And he offered a perspective that, honestly, it could completely redefine how you think about setbacks, progress, even what failure means here.
So our goal today is to unpack these sources, pull out the absolute core ideas, hopefully give you a new framework, maybe a new language for understanding your own experience.
Because the usual story is pretty harsh, isn't it?
Totally. The conventional story we hear about failure and weight loss is usually like, you're not disciplined enough, or you're weak,
Yeah.
you're broken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Dan Hollis, he offered a radically different narrative.
Okay, so let's start right there then. That feeling of failure. You're trying, you're making changes, and then you have a day, maybe a meal, maybe a whole week that just doesn't go to plan.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, that internal critic just jumps right in, doesn't it? See? Told you, you'll never get this. You failed. It feels so final.
That's the trap, isn't it? The conventional view sees a slip-up as like a final verdict on your capability or your worth. It
Yeah.
triggers all that shame.
Yeah.
But Hollis, he didn't see it that way. Not at all. One of the most striking things, really, from these sources is his core idea. He said, this is a quote, "Failure isn't the end. It's a message, a moment of feedback."
A message. Okay. Not a judgment.
Yeah.
Well, that changes the whole emotional weight of it, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
He didn't treat failure like some, deep, shameful secret or proof you're not good enough. He treated it like data.
Data.
Yeah, just information, something you observe, something that tells you something you didn't know before. It's not a stop sign. It's maybe just a point on the map saying, maybe you need to adjust the course here, or maybe the whole route needs a rethink.
So those moments we usually call failures or, relapses, he saw those differently too.
Absolutely. He viewed relapses often not as some kind of betrayal of your progress, but more like the brain just asking for the old familiar rhythm.
Hmm.
Your system's just defaulting to what it knows,
Yeah.
especially, when you're stressed or tired.
That's almost comforting, thinking of it that way. Like it's not an act of defiance from yourself, just a learned pattern popping up.
Exactly. And what's really critical, according to this perspective, is how you respond when that pattern shows up.
All right.
If you ignore that signal, if you just pretend it didn't happen or, try to shove it down with willpower,
Mm-hmm.
the sources say you don't just experience a temporary setback, you actually fracture.
Fracture. Wow.
Yeah, you create a deeper break and trust with yourself, with the process.
So the breakdown isn't even the main problem. It's ignoring the message that the breakdown is sending.
Precisely. And often, these breakdowns in progress, they aren't a sign that you are weak. These sources suggest they're often a sign that the support system needs reinforcing, not that the person is weak.
Okay.
It points towards needing better tools and maybe more support, maybe just a different strategy, not some, deficit in your character.
And if you can actually approach those moments, those setbacks, not with that immediate, harsh self-blame, but with curiosity.
Then they transform. They become, as the sources put it, sacred.
Sacred.
Yeah, sacred moments. But only if you're willing to look at them and learn, instead of just reaching for blame.
That ties into something else I found really powerful in these teachings. So much of the shame we feel comes from this idea that we're supposed to be perfect.
Yes. The sources echo this really well. They state, the shame isn't in failing. The shame is in pretending you are supposed to be perfect. We set this impossible bar, and then we're just crushed when, inevitably, reality doesn't measure up.
Okay, shifting gears just a little bit. These sources also talk about the role of tools. They specifically mention things like semaglutide, which is, such a huge topic right now. How does this perspective handle something like medication?
Well, Hollis viewed tools like semaglutide as something that can create a unique kind of silence.
Silence.
Yeah. If you've lived with food being this constant noise in your head, like a relentless stream of thoughts, cravings, or maybe using food as a co-pilot just to get through emotions or boredom, this medication can quiet that down a lot.
So it creates space where maybe there wasn't much space before.
Exactly. A pause, a breather, a reset. It provides really essential space by turning down the volume on those biological drives that can just feel overwhelming sometimes.
Okay, and here's where I think it gets really, really interesting. This perspective makes it super clear that the tool itself, the medication, isn't presented as the solution.
Crucially, no, that's not the point. The emphasis is really powerful here. Most people aren't failing semaglutide. They're failing to prepare for what comes after it.
Ah, okay.
It's framed as a tool for adaptation, not cheating. And it directly challenges that idea that willpower alone should be enough. One source even says the real cheat is pretending willpower was enough.
Wow. So it's not a moral failing if you need or use a tool like this. It's about recognizing it creates a window, an opportunity.
Yes, and the real significance, the real work is what you build, what you learn, what systems you put in place during that window of reduced noise.
Yeah.
As Hollis apparently put it, the real work begins when the cravings stop. That's when the truth shows up.
Truth.
Yeah, the
Thinking.
truth about the habits, the emotional connections, the life patterns that were kind of being navigated with food as the helper, the co-pilot.
So weight loss, in this view, it's just so much more than a number on a scale.
Infinitely more, yeah. It's described as being fundamentally about building a life where food isn't your only coping tool. It's about equipping yourself with a whole range of ways to handle stress or celebrate or connect that don't just automatically revolve around eating.
And what about those moments when you feel like you're losing control? That feeling.
Hollis reframed that beautifully too, according to these sources. It's not necessarily that you lost control, but maybe that you lost connection
Connection.
to your hunger keys, to your purpose, to yourself. So the work isn't about like white-knuckling stricter control. The real work is to help you rebuild that lost connection.
That feels so much more empowering, doesn't it, than just constantly battling this perceived lack of control.
Absolutely. And the emphasis shifts, you know? It's
Yeah.
on sustainability over just speed. Fast results don't mean lasting ones.
Right.
And the scale, well, the scale doesn't measure self-trust. That number is just one data point. It's not the ultimate judge of your inner progress or how resilient you're becoming, which is why planning is so key. During that window, a tool might provide. Like, if you don't plan for life after semaglutide, it will plan for you. Life will just fill that space back up with the old ways.
And it's not just about removing the weight, is it? It's about what fills the space left behind.
Exactly right. Every pound lost means a habit must be replaced, not just removed. Biology, maybe medication, might give you a head start, perhaps by dampening cravings or whatever. But the long-term change, the sources say only identity keeps you moving.
Identity.
Yeah, you have to actively build the identity of a person who naturally makes different choices, lives a different way.
Identity over discipline. That brings up another really powerful concept from these sources. You don't hold on to weight loss with discipline, you hold on to it with alignment. Can you unpack that a bit? Alignment versus discipline.
Yeah, it's a fascinating distinction. Discipline often feels like forcing yourself, right? Like pushing against resistance, doing something you don't inherently want to do. It's a constant internal battle.
Like willpower.
It's exactly. Alignment, though. That's different. Alignment is when your actions just naturally line up with who you see yourself as or who you're genuinely becoming. When your habits are in alignment with your desired identity, it takes far less effortful discipline to maintain them. It feels more integrated.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do you actually build that alignment, especially maybe after a setback? How do you use this idea of failure as feedback in that process?
Well, that brings in this idea of grace, which is discussed in the teachings. Grace, in this context, is built when you respond to a stumble by reaching for a better tool instead of reaching for blame.
A better cool, like what, like that curiosity about the feedback, seeking connection, focusing on alignment instead of just brute force willpower.
Precisely. All of those. It's about having alternative responses ready to go when those old patterns try to assert themselves. And this is where Hollis apparently posed this really insightful question you should ask yourself after a misstep.
What's the question?
What story am I telling myself about this failure? And is that story helping me become who I want to be?
Oh, wow. That's incredibly clarifying. It forces you to examine the narrative you're building inside your own head and whether it's actually, helping you move forward or just keeping you stuck in the mud.
And that right there is the essence of failing forward. Using the setback, using the feedback to choose a different tool next time, maybe refine your understanding, adjust the story you're telling yourself, and just keep moving constructively towards building that aligned life, that identity.
It really feels like these ideas, they resonate way beyond just the specifics of weight loss, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. As one source noted, Hollis's teachings apparently changed how people related to every misstep in life, not just the ones connected to health or weight.
Because healing, real transformation, It isn't usually this big, sudden, dramatic event like we often imagine it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
The sources describe healing in this context as something pretty quiet, actually, something intentional. It's the slow layering of new choices, new thoughts, and new systems.
Layer by layer.
Yeah, it's a process, built deliberately over time.
And the ultimate vision he offered, the real goal of all this work, it was captured so beautifully in one of the lines from the sources. Weight loss is not about becoming someone else. It's about finally having the space to become yourself.
Hmm. That space, right? The space created by quieting some of that internal noise,
Yeah.
maybe getting a pause,
Yeah.
and then intentionally using that opportunity to build a life and an identity that really aligns with who you truly are deep down.
Wow. Okay, so taking a step back from this deep dive into Dan Hollis's perspective, as shared in these sources, we've kind of journeyed from seeing failure as this personal indictment, this proof of weakness,
Right.
to seeing it as valuable feedback,
Yeah.
just data. We've reframed weight loss away from just being a battle of willpower against cravings measured only by a number,
Yeah.
towards seeing it as a journey of building identity, finding alignment, creating a life where you have multiple tools beyond just food, and using grace and curiosity to actually learn from every step, even the stumbles.
It's a really fundamental shift, isn't it? From focusing on external control, like discipline and restriction, to cultivating internal connection,
Mm-hmm.
connection to self, connection to purpose. It offers a path built much more on understanding and self-compassion rather than just shame and blame.
Yeah.
It almost gives you permission to stumble, really, with the understanding that the stumble itself probably holds the lesson you need right now.
We really hope these ideas offer you, listening, maybe a different way to think about challenges in your own life, whether they're related to health or habits or really any area where setbacks can feel kind of devastating.
And if, as these teachings suggest, healing is this slow layering of new choices, new thoughts, and new systems, maybe consider this. If something in your life could be a tool, could be a major change, could just be a conscious decision, create some kind of space or pause for you by reducing some of the usual noise or automatic behaviors you rely on.
Mm-hmm.
How can you intentionally use any such space you find, maybe even right now, to begin that quiet, intentional work, that work of building a new identity layer by layer?
Something to reflect on. Until our next deep dive.